Hello friends, up till now in unit 1 we have talked about the definitions of communication, what communication means, and then we talked about the importance of communication. We saw some movie clips to understand how communication is important, be it planning, be it communicating the plan to your team members as was done by the coach here, be it decision making and be it communicating the rationale behind a particular decision to the subordinates, as we saw Amitabh Bachchan doing here. He did not only make a decision, but he also communicated the rationale behind the decision to his subordinates, and this way he was able to convince them that his decision was actually the most correct one, the most ethical one, and he was able to get their support. So when a boss is making a decision, he needs to communicate the rationale behind that decision to his teammates, and for that again communication is important. Then we saw here how these players of Indian hockey team, they were communicating with each other to improve their coordination and to be more effective and to be able to win the match, right? And we saw how they developed their own codes, they developed their own gestures, unique gestures and unique codes, which was something that the others did not know about. So they had their own code. For example, this lady used the code Kanyakumari. So they developed their own codes to be able to communicate effectively with each other so that they can have greater coordination among themselves and they can be more effective in the field. Then we also talked about how it is very, very important to communicate when you are trying to motivate somebody, because if you do not communicate, it's going to be very difficult for you to motivate somebody. However, we also saw that to be able to motivate somebody, you simply do not only need to say something. You can motivate somebody by using gestures or by using war cries like Jo bole Soni Hal. This is a war cry and this is to motivate the other members of the team. Yeah, in this particular case, Jor laga ke haisa. So these are basically war cries and they are basically used to motivate the other members of the team. So this is what we saw in the last sessions that we have had. Today we are going to talk about the objectives of communication. So up till now we were discussing how communication is important in our life and what role does it play in planning and decision making and motivating and achieving better coordination. Now what we are going to discuss today is what is the objective of communication? What goals do we try to achieve by communicating? So the number first that we are going to discuss is the first thing that we try to achieve through communication is many a times we have to pass on some instructions, pass on some commands. Now have a look at this particular picture. You would probably not be able to understand as to what's happening in this picture, so let me explain it to you. Basically what is happening is, this is a scene from inside an aircraft, from inside a civilian aeroplane, and these people have boarded the bus. You can see the passengers here, they've boarded the bus, and these are the air hostesses, and the flight is about to start, and these air hostesses are basically trying to tell the passengers as to what they have to do in case there is an emergency. So they're simply telling as to what all exits are there. So these hands, they are pointing towards the exits which the passengers can take in case of an emergency. किस जगह से plane से बाहर निकला जा सकता है, this is what they are pointing at. The exits, the exit doors. So they are actually using these gestures to point at those exits which are there, which the passengers can take in case of an emergency, right? So now basically this is passing on of some instructions, and this is simply not possible without communicating. Now please understand, it's not as if they're saying something. Are they saying something? They're not saying anything. They are using these gestures, these two hands, to demonstrate to the passengers as to where the exits are, where the exit doors are. So they are communicating not by using words, they are communicating using gestures. You will understand later on, and you would recall from your understanding of English language and communication skills in the first semester, that this is basically known as non-verbal communication, which does not make use of any language, and it is very relevant here also. Why? Please understand that the passengers may or may not be able to understand or speak or understand a particular language, because you can understand this is an international flight. There might be people from Europe, there might be people from China, there might be people from India and Africa, so there are people from different nationalities. So it's not possible for these air hostesses to communicate to them effectively in one particular language, because a particular passenger may know that particular language, the other passengers may not know. The best way for them now is to use these gestures, and everybody is able to understand these gestures, and that is why they are deliberately using these gestures, right, to pass on these commands, to pass on these instructions as to what the passenger will have to do in case there is a emergency mid-air. Now again, we have seen many a times why somebody communicates is to motivate the others. Now this is a picture that we have taken from a cricket match, and this is the Indian women's cricket team, and you can see the captain here. You can also identify that this is the lady who is actually talking and the others are listening to her, right? So I hope you know who this particular lady is. He is the captain of the Indian women's cricket team, 50 over cricket team, and she is trying to probably motivate her fellow teammates, and she is trying to tell them as to what is to be done. She is trying to pump them up so that everybody exerts their best efforts. So she is trying to motivate her teammates, and all the teammates are listening to her, right? So we can see that one of the objective of communication can also be to motivate the team members, and this is what is being done here. You would see similar kind of scenes in not only cricket matches, in hockey matches also. You would see that similar kind of things you are able to witness in a local match also, whenever a particular leader is trying to communicate his subordinates. Not only this is also seen in offices when the boss is trying to get her subordinates to exert their best efforts. The boss is trying to get the subordinates to put in their best effort. The boss is trying to motivate the subordinates. So there also you see these kind of scenes. Then counseling. What do we mean by counseling? Counseling we use in different situations. For example, this looks like a teacher talking to a student and trying to understand as to what problem this particular student is facing in the class. We also counsel you students many a times when you are facing some problem, and we get to know that this is a problem, or many a times there are students like Nishchal who probably would not be listening to this lecture. When he is absent for 15-20 days, we tend to find out from them as to what has happened, what is the problem. Are they facing some problem on the health front? Is there any health issue? Or are they facing some other problems, some financial issues are there? Or are they facing some problem from the family, some issues there with their family? So we try to understand from them, we try to counsel them as to what is the best way forward. We try to tell them how to work hard so that they can achieve their career goal, they can realize their career dreams. So this is again counseling. Many a times in offices also, in professional setup also, the boss counsels the subordinate. Many a times he'll counsel the subordinate, he'll tell the subordinate as to how the subordinate can improve his or her performance. So this again is an instance of counseling. So for counseling also you need to communicate. Without communicating, it's just not possible for you to counsel somebody, right? So without using communication, this lady simply cannot counsel her student. And then persuasion. Persuasion is to convince somebody. That is what persuasion means. I hope you are going through Word Power Made Easy, and if you are going through it and if you are regularly reading English newspapers and English novels, you would understand to persuade means to convince somebody. And can you persuade somebody without using communication? Now this is a salesman basically. This looks like a salesman who is trying to sell something, and for that he has made a presentation in front of the buyers. This is the buying committee of the organization which he is targeting, and he is trying to sell them something, and he is trying to persuade them to buy that particular thing, to place the order. And how he can do that? He can only do that by making use of communication. He could be saying something, or he could be making use of some charts or some diagrams, like we can see here. He might be making use of some diagrams or some testimonials by some other satisfied customers. But whatever he does, he has to communicate to be able to persuade this buying committee members of the organization which he is targeting, to whom he wants to sell his products. Some of you might say that this looks like a slightly different situation. This looks like a boardroom of a company wherein they are discussing a particular plan. It could again possibly be so. This could be an executive who is trying to sell his idea. He has a new product idea, and he is trying to convince the other members in the organization that his idea has merit, his idea is a good one, and they should further go forward and implement his idea. So again, the element of persuasion is still there. So he's trying to persuade his fellow colleagues in the organization, right? So in all these instances, you can understand that you simply cannot do without communicating. However, I'm not saying that communicating means only speaking. You can communicate in different manners, different ways. You can make use of gestures. You can make use of your facial expression. A smile can also communicate. We'll see in the coming sessions that how you can even communicate through your smile. So the idea is that you will have to communicate. It may not always be necessary for you to speak something, but yes, you may also communicate by through your smile, or through your gestures, or by the way you sit or stand, which we call postures. So by your posture also you may communicate something to the others. So these are the broad objectives of communication. We'll take up this particular topic again, and we'll discuss a few more things which are left in this particular topic in the next session. Thank you.